possible, we like to foreshadow impending boss battles by introducing the enemy before the actual fight. In this case, you know you're going to be seeing that gunship again pretty soon. Instead of letting the gunship AI have its own way here, we forced the ship to crash right into the attic. It's a dramatic payoff for winning the battle, and it gives players an opportunity to examine a gunship up close at their leisure.
We designed this gunship battle to create a dynamic, evolving experience, while still keeping the player within a constrained area. Initially, the space appears straightforward and provides plenty of cover. As the environment gets progressively more damaged, combat becomes more challenging. Players are increasingly open to enemy fire, and the path to the rocket crate becomes more difficult to navigate. As the roof breaks apart, however, the gunship also becomes more visible, and therefore easier to hit, keeping things relatively in balance. The lighting in this area was tuned to play off of the HDR tone mapping effects, between the dark inner spaces and the progressively open, bright sky above.
Gordon, te tényleg veszélyes vagy? Meghalt? Azért még ráverhetnél egyet a feszítővassal. Biztos, ami biztos. Vigyázz magadra, nem festesz túl jól. Egek, nem már megint! Ennyit a gyógykészletekről. Találtam egy sörétest.
The hospital was a completely new interior space that we had to design pretty much from scratch. Like most of City 17's visuals, it was inspired by Eastern European architecture. The surgery lamps and the overall white and yellow color scheme were drawn from photos of a hospital in Chernobyl. The tile work and the high archways were chosen to give the area the institutional feel of an old European hospital, and the beds were based on some World War II images. In fact, we avoided modern-looking fixtures and furniture altogether in order to differentiate the place from a contemporary hospital.
We designed this area to be an entertaining showcase for NPC combat. Because of our dynamic AI, these kinds of battles never really play out the same way twice. Players often like to sit back, watch the show, and then dive into the fray at their own discretion. We also felt it was time to introduce a new combat ability for Alex, so we gave her a shotgun here. Not only are shotguns terrific for zombie hunting, their size and ponderous handling characteristics make for some great combat animations.
The door-banging zombies were supposed to give players a safe glimpse of the threat they'd have to face later in the level. In the original design, players couldn't open the door. The zombies would burst through on their own after the player had done a little exploring. We abandoned that plan when many playtesters exhibited a pretty much single-minded fascination with opening the door as soon as they saw it. We made the door openable, though if players ignore it, the zombies will eventually break it down themselves.
To make the set of empty corridors look like a hospital, we chose some iconic hospital props that could be used multiple times throughout the level. Then we built the models with details, multiple skins, and vertical and horizontal elements that would be visually interesting in the space.
Csak utánad. Jaj, ne! Gordon, rendben vagy? Egek, még több zombi!
Too much of the same type of uninterrupted gameplay causes fatigue. Through repeated playtests, we learned that by the time players reached this part of the hospital, they were ready for a break from the intense combat. In response to that feedback, we inserted this relatively calm exploration puzzle as a change of pace. It gives players a respite from combat while still presenting them with an interesting challenge. Too much of the same type of uninterrupted gameplay causes fatigue. Through repeated playtests, we learned that by the time players reached this part of the hospital, they were ready for a break from the intense combat. In response to that feedback, we inserted this relatively calm exploration puzzle as a change of pace. It gives players a respite from combat while still presenting them with an interesting challenge.
Sajnálom, hogy egyedül hagytalak lent, Gordon. Le voltam terhelve. Látom, nélkülem is boldogultál. Igen, hadd égjenek! Itt vannak. Átjutok.
Morfium adagolva. Enyhe sérülés észlelve.
Mégis miféle kórház ez?
What you're seeing here is a visual representation of a node graph, a set of nodes and all the connections between them. The node graph is used by NPCs to figure out how to move around the world. It's not really a specific set of instructions, but rather a sort of information repository. Among other things, NPCs use the node graph to dynamically chart paths to distant areas, find cover, or scout out firing positions with a clear line of sight to their enemy. What you're seeing here is a visual representation of a node graph, a set of nodes and all the connections between them. The node graph is used by NPCs to figure out how to move around the world. It's not really a specific set of instructions, but rather a sort of information repository. Among other things, NPCs use the node graph to dynamically chart paths to distant areas, find cover, or scout out firing positions with a clear line of sight to their enemy.
This turret scenario was designed to showcase Alex's ability to provide cover for players in combat. She always hangs back a little, blasting anything that moves. In the original version, players could knock over lightly protected turrets with a single rocket, fired from the safe end of the corridor. We thought it'd be a nice way for players to feel like they'd pulled one over on the Combine. Unfortunately, playtesters routinely thought that they'd discovered a bug, or, at best, an exploit that had arisen from sloppy design. So in this case, a situation we deliberately created to make the players feel clever actually caused them to think we weren't doing our job very well. As a result of this feedback, we added a force field and additional ratings to better protect the turrets.
Igen, az állomás.
Ami nem tűr halasztást, ha még a 17-es városban tartózkodnának, javaslom, hogy a lehető leggyorsabb módon hagyják el a várost.
Keressük meg Barnit és induljunk.
We wanted players to realize that they've been spotted and the Combine are now aware of their arrival at the train station. It sounds like a simple task, but it actually took a lot of thought to draw the players' attention to the various events that communicate this message. First, a train horn sounds, which gives Alex an opportunity to mention that the station is in sight. Next, the lights go off to grab the players' attention and to make the monitors stand out in the dark. At this point, the player should be looking at one of the monitors, so finally, the Kleiner transmission is interrupted briefly by a Combine advisor. Originally, the advisor appeared on a jumbotron outside, but we were never able to reliably make playtesters look at it. The flashing Combine camera should also provide some indication that trouble is brewing. Though it's not a proper gate, the zombie draped over the exit is designed to slow the player down just long enough for Alex to finish her lines.
Hát itt vagytok? Nem tudtam, hogy ide értek-e időben.
Feltartottak a Combine a sarkunkban. Mi a terv?
Csoportokban küldöm ki a civileket. Mindazt már tudtam. Ha találják őket, amíg a biztonságban átjutnak, még esélyük is lehet elérni a menekülő vonatokat.
Jól hangzik. Küld az első csoportot.
Essünk neki! Freeman, lőszer!
Originally, Barney started off in this map in the doorway down by the citizens, but playtesters tended to wander around for a while before stumbling across him.
Lőszer itt!
We moved him up here to guarantee that his scene with Alex would unfold before players began any exploration. He's standing over a dead Metro cop because it's a plausible-looking long-term activity, in case players don't move directly down to him. Nearby reward items also tend to draw players
Tessék,
toward him.
lőszer! Elindulunk hamarosan? Tessék, lőszer! A gondolat, hogy régen biztosító akartam lenni. Tessék, lőszer!
Here we wanted to include something a little different, an escort mission. Most of our gameplay involves constant forward motion, so we wanted to design a situation where players would fight through the same basic area multiple times.
Tessék,
This
lőszer!
temporary backtracking would create a series of encounters where players had a full tactical awareness of their surroundings.
Freeman,
Once
lőszer!
again, all of this turned out to be more easily said than done, and this sequence went through a lot of iterations. Originally, the train yard was one big space. This approach had a couple of problems. Since players had a constant unbroken view of the entire area, it was virtually impossible to maneuver enemies into position for stage combat events, and because they could always see the goal, players didn't get much of a sense that they were leading citizens somewhere the citizens couldn't get to on their own. Ultimately, we broke the environment into two different spaces, a parking lot and a maintenance building. Because neither area can be seen from the other, we're able to repopulate the spaces with new, more deadly combinations of enemies while the player isn't looking. It also makes the journey feel lengthier and more significant.
Freeman, lőszer! Mikor ennek vége, én... kit akarok becsapni?
We wrestled with the problem of plausibly repopulating this area with soldiers between each trip. After several iterations, we decided to have the soldiers jump in through some high windows. This solution has several advantages beyond maintaining incredible fiction. It makes the incoming enemies more immediately visible, and, since the windows are unreachable from the ground, players aren't able to exit through them. Plus, leaping soldiers turn into tumbling ragdolls when shot, which is always entertaining.
Jó. Nem volt vészes. Egyszerre kellett volna áthoznunk őket.
Maga nem, Freeman. Még van dolga.
Fedez, még újra töltök. Vigyázzon, Freeman! Vigyázz!
Hé, Freeman! Irány vissza segíteni! Magának meg kéne várni, amíg mindenki más felszállt.
Menj vissza, hozz egy másik csapatot. Én védem a kaput. Hozz még polgárokat, Gordon.
Vigyázz rájuk, Gordon! Számítanak rád!
Nyomás, emberek! Fejeket behúzni!
Kösz, Freeman!
Vissza, Doki! Előbb segítsen a többieknek biztonságba jutni.
Szépen segben! Gordon! Védd a polgárokat! Ők a mieink! Ott fönt!
Magával tartunk. Jól van, megyek már. Basszus.
Fedezzük magukat! Fedezzük magukat!
Magának hála. Sikerült!
Töltenem kell!
Magának meg kéne várnia, amíg mindenki más felszállt.
Épségben vannak. Menj a másikért.
Gordon Freeman, akit ismerek.
Dr. Freeman.
Déjà vu.
Jól van, megyek már, jesszus! Magával tartunk. Magával tartunk.
Hajszálon múlt a dolog.
Fejeket behúzni.
Maga nem, Freeman. Még van dolga.
Hozz még egy csapat, polgár Gordon.
Járőr közeledik a vádlotthoz. Muníció kimerítve.
A vonatokhoz, emberek! Majd mi gondoskodunk az épségükről.
Tessék, lőszer! Freeman, lőszer!
Nyomás, emberek!
Ez nem sokon múlt.
Ez majd távol tartja őket tőlünk.
Ti jöttök?
Te menj, Barney, nem téged akarnak. Gordon és én eltereljük őket, míg te elviszed a többieket. Mi majd elcsípünk egy másik vonatot.
Jól van. De ne időzz túl sokáig, oké?
Na, irány a másik vágány.
Elnézést. Sikerült!
Szia, Barney! Sok szerencsét!
Látjuk egymást.
We needed a train station, but we didn't want something that was too similar to the one in Half-Life 2. We decided to give this station a more industrial look, to make it a place where trains were repaired and freight was offloaded. We included some Combine elements to help explain why the Strider can't fire through the various strategic barricades required by the game design.
Én előre megyek a vonathoz. Nem tétlenkedhetünk.
We separate Alex from the player here to make the Strider battle a more intimate combat experience. While we generally want Alex to be useful to the player, bosses tend to require a specific combat style to beat, and we found that it usually doesn't make gameplay sense to keep her around. Plus, boss battles are the player's big hero moments, and having too much help dilutes a sense of individual accomplishment. Alex more or less sits out all of our boss encounters.
For this climactic battle, we created a new AI that makes the Strider a more interesting opponent. It has a snappier cannon attack, can better track the player's movements, and it now has the ability to target the environment in dangerous ways. For instance, its cannon fire can shove heavy shipping containers straight into the player.
This shipping container used to be accessible only after the player destroyed a padlock. Given the amount of stress during this part of the game, even a simple puzzle, in this case destroying a lock, would be completely missed by the player. In the end, we felt like the arena we had built for the player to fight the Strider was fun enough without this added element, so we removed it.
We often use goodies, such as this crate and the scanner battery around the corner, to guide players along a preset route. We want players to hit their marks during a battle without drawing attention to the fact that they're being subtly manipulated down a particular path.
high in this fight, but we also realized that players would need some cover. Some destructible panels satisfied both those design goals. Effectively, they're time shelters. Players can hide behind the panels, but the Strider will target them until they're destroyed. This gives the players brief periods of safety during which they can plan their next move.
We noticed during playtesting that players were often too afraid of the Strider's weapons to stand in front of it and fire rockets. This was kind of a problem because rockets are virtually the only way to kill a Strider. To help players, we modified the Strider's AI so that a player-launched rocket will significantly delay the Strider's attack. This battle of reflexes lets players guide their missiles in safety as long as they get their shot off before the Strider does.
Te vagy az új hősöm! El sem hiszem. A végén még tényleg egyben kijutunk innen. Gyorsan, indítsuk a vonatot. Pattanj fel, Gordon! Mögötted vagyok!
Along with vistas, positive feedback from Alex is one of our primary means of rewarding players.
In this case, Alex's excitement over the Strider's destruction adds a sense of closure to the battle, and gives players the satisfaction that someone witnessed and appreciated their heroics.
The train the player rides out of City 17 had two major design goals. It had to visually connect the end of Episode 1 to the beginning of Episode 2, and it also needed to address the functional gameplay requirements of the second episode. Using reference material we collected on European train cars from the 1980s, we built a basic version of the train that level designers could test. Once we got the thumbs up from them, we added textures and lots of little details. The result is basically a caboose, combined with rounder, more streamlined elements from a passenger car.
Apart from being a big visual payoff to the episode, there were several story requirements that this ending sequence needed to convey. It had to make it very clear that the Citadel was destroyed, that the Citadel pods had escaped, and it needed to imply that the data transmission beam was streaming out of the ruins. We discovered that Alex had to be mostly silent during the scene, or else players tended to look at her instead of all the chaos around them.
Istenem, megindult az adás!
Apart from being a big visual payoff to the episode, there were several story requirements that this ending sequence needed to convey. It had to make it very clear that the Citadel was destroyed, that the Citadel pods had escaped, and it needed to imply that the data transmission beam was streaming out of the ruins. We discovered that Alex had to be mostly silent during the scene, or else players tended to look at her instead of all the chaos around them.
This is more than anyone can bear, but we will persevere.
We're done running. This is our chance to take back our world. We're not going to lose it the second time.